The galaxy watched in shock as humanity walked away from peace. Part 1. The great chamber of Orbital Prime was filled with light. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds had gathered to witness history. After 18 months of war, humanity and the Dominion were about to sign a peace treaty. The fighting would finally end. And Sun stood at the human delegation platform. He wore his formal diplomat uniform, but underneath, his body still carried scars from the battles he had fought before becoming a diplomat. His face showed nothing as he watched the alien representatives celebrate around him. Lieutenant Park stood at his side. She was his tactical advisor and translator, a woman who could speak 9 alien languages and spot a lie from across a room. Right now, her eyes were moving across the chamber, watching everything. They seem very happy, she said quietly. They should be, he replied. War is expensive for everyone. At the center of the chamber, Council raised her 4 arms for silence. She was an ancient species that had helped build the Galactic Council thousands of years ago. Her silver skin reflected the lights above, and her voice carried easily through the massive room. Today marks a great moment, announced. The Dominion and the human collective have agreed to end their conflict. Peace will return to the outer systems. Cheers erupted from every corner. Watched as Ambassador of the Dominion smiled with his sharp teeth. There were tall beings with gray skin and 4 eyes. They had started this war by invading 3 human colony worlds without warning. Now they stood here accepting praise for peace. The terms have been agreed upon by both parties, continued. The Dominion will pay reparations to Earth. Trade routes will reopen. Territorial boundaries will be restored to their pre-war positions. More cheers? Herbark's breath hit slightly. Restored, she whispered. That cannot be right. Held up his hand slightly. Wait. Young Aide brought the official document to the human platform. It was a data tablet containing the full treaty text. Took it and began to read while the celebration continued around him. The first sections were standard. Money would be paid, ships would withdraw, prisoners of war would be exchanged. Everything seemed normal and fair, had seen these terms in the preliminary discussions. Then he reached Section 14, Subsection 7. His face did not change, his hands did not shake, but Park had known him for 10 years and he saw something cold enter his eyes. What is it? She asked. Handed her the tablet without a word. He pointed to a specific paragraph buried deep in the text. Park read it, her face went pale. This was not in the preliminary agreement, she said. This was added later. Yes, said it was. The paragraph was written in complicated legal language, but its meaning was simple. The 3 colony worlds that they had invaded would remain under control. The human population on those worlds, estimated at over 2 million people, would be classified as integrated population assets. They would not be returned. They would not be freed. They would stay as workers in mines and factories. The treaty called it integration, knew the real word was slavery. He looked across the chamber at Ambassador, that was watching him with all 4 eyes. There was amusement in that gaze, knew exactly what had just found. They think we will accept this, Park said. Her voice was tight with anger. They think we will sign away 2 million of our own people for peace. Said nothing for a long moment. Around them, aliens of every shape and color were celebrating. They had no idea what was hidden in that document, or perhaps they did know, and they simply did not care. Contact Admiral, said quietly. Tell him we need to speak with Earth Command immediately. Request a recess. Park moved quickly to the communication console, straightened his uniform, and walked toward the center platform where Counselor stood. The celebration began to quiet as beings noticed the human delegate approaching, turned her ancient eyes toward him. Captain, she said warmly, are you ready to sign the treaty? This is a great day for your people. Counselor said, his voice calm and clear. The human delegation requests a brief reset before the signing ceremony. We need to consult with our home government on some details. Ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. Treaties were not supposed to need last-minute consultations. Everything should have been agreed upon already. Tilted her head. Is there a problem, Captain? Looked at her steadily. There may be, Counselor. We will know shortly. Ambassador stepped forward, his 4 eyes narrowing. The terms were clear in our negotiations. What could possibly need discussion? That is between me and my government, replied. We will return within the hour. Turned and walked back to the human platform. Park was waiting with a portable communicator. The holographic image of Admiral Dong flickered to life above it. The Admiral was an old man with white hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. I received the document you forwarded, said. I have shown it to the Council of Nations on Earth. They are reviewing it now. What are your orders, Admiral? Asked. It was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with something that might have been sorrow or might have been pride. Section 14, Subsection 7 is unacceptable. Those are our people on those worlds. Farmers, teachers, children. They were taken from their homes by force. We do not trade in human lives, Captain. We never have. It will not change the terms, Park said. They consider those colonists their property now. Then they're wrong, replied, and we will correct that mistake. Look at the tablet in his hand. 2 million names, 2 million lives, families torn apart, children growing up in mines instead of schools, and the galaxy expected humanity to simply accept this as the price of peace. What are my orders, Admiral? Asked again. Looked at him through the hologram. Refuse the treaty, Captain. Refuse it and come home. We have preparations to make. The communication ended, straightened his shoulders, and turned to face the chamber once more. It is time, he said to Park. They will not understand, she replied. None of them will understand why we are doing this. Began walking toward the center platform. Then we will teach them. The chamber fell silent as the human delegate approached once more. Every eye, every sensor, every consciousness in that vast room turned toward him. They expected a signature. They expected gratitude. They expected humans to be reasonable. They were about to learn that humans had a different definition of that word. Captain Sun stopped before Counselor and Ambassador. His face was calm. His voice was steady, and his eyes were colder than the space between stars. The human collective has reviewed the complete treaty, he said. We have reached a decision. Leaned forward with hope, smiled with confidence, but clearly so that every being in the chamber could hear. We refuse. The word echoed through the silence like a gunshot. No one moved, no one spoke. The galaxy held its breath. And humanity had only just begun. The galaxy watched in shock as humanity walked away from peace. Part 2. A single word hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. Every being in the great chamber of Orbital Prime stared at the human delegate. Surely they had heard wrong. Surely no species would refuse a treaty that offered them so much. Counselor was the first to speak. Her silver face showed confusion that was almost painful to see. Captain, perhaps I did not understand. Did you say refuse? Yes, Counselor replied. Humanity rejects this treaty in its entirety. The chamber erupted. Voices in 100 languages filled the air. Some shouted in anger. Others cried out in disbelief. Delegates turned to each other, asking if they had truly witnessed what they thought they had witnessed. Ambassador pushed through the crowd toward. His 4 eyes were wide with fury. This is madness. Your people are losing this war. Your fleet is broken. Your colonies burn. And you refuse peace. We refuse your peace, said calmly. There is a difference. There is no difference, shouted. You will sign this treaty or the Dominion will crush what remains of your pathetic civilization. We offered you mercy. We offered you a future. And you spit in our faces. Lieutenant Park stepped forward. In her hands was a data tablet. May I address the council, Counselor? Waved her arms for silence. The chaos slowly died down as beings realized that something important was happening. Speak, Lieutenant. Help us understand the decision. Park raised the tablet and projected its contents onto the main display screen. The legal text of Section 14, Subsection 7 appeared for all to see. The section of the treaty, she said, states that the 3 colony worlds invaded by the Dominion will remain under Dominion control. It further states that the human population of those worlds, more than 2 million people, will be classified as integrated population assets. She paused to let the words sink in. In simple language, Park continued, this treaty asks humanity to abandon over 2 million of our citizens to slavery. Men, women, and children who were taken from their homes by force, families separated, people worked to death in mines, and we are expected to sign a paper that makes this legal. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some delegate nodded as if this explanation made perfect sense. Others still looked confused. A delegate from the Federation raised a tentacle. But this is standard practice. When territory changes hands after conflict, the population adapts to new governance. It has always been this way. Not for humanity, Park said. Never for humanity. Ambassador laughed. It was an ugly sound. You speak as if you have a choice. Your fleet cannot protect those worlds. Your soldiers cannot reach them. Those humans belong to the Dominion now by right of conquest. This treaty simply acknowledges reality. He had been standing quietly while Park spoke. Now he stepped forward, and something in his movement made even take a step back. Let me tell you about reality, he said. His voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. 3 of those colonists are my cousins. One is the daughter of my childhood friend. Another is a teacher who taught me to read when I was 5 years old. He looked around the chamber at the assembled delegates. You see 2 million population assets. We see 2 million names, 2 million faces, 2 million lives that matter, and we will not trade them for peace. We will not trade them for anything. Counselor flowed closer to him. Her ancient eyes held something that might have been pity. Captain, please understand. The Council respects human values, but you must be practical. Your species is young. Your resources are limited. If you continue this war alone, you will lose everything. Perhaps agreed, but we will lose it with honor. Holographic display flickered to life behind him. Admiral Dong appeared, his image broadcast from Earth. He wore his full military uniform, medals and all. His face was hard as stone. Counselor, the Admiral said, I am authorized to speak for the entire human collective. Our position is final. There will be no peace while our people are held in chains. Release the colonists and we will negotiate. Keep them and we will fight until we can no longer fight. You are choosing extinction, said. Your species will be erased from history. And we will be erased, replied. But we will be erased as humans, not as cowards who sold their children for comfort. The chamber fell into a terrible silence. Every delegate understood now that this was not a negotiating tactic. This was not a bluff. Humanity meant every word. Counselor turned to face the full council. This assembly calls upon the Dominion to reconsider the terms of the treaty, release the human colonists, and peace can still be achieved. Ambassador shook his head. Impossible. Those workers are essential to our economy now. They mine our metals. They build our ships. We will not release them because humans have strange beliefs about the value of individual lives. And there is nothing more to discuss, said. Reached up and removed his diplomatic credentials from his chest. The silver badge caught the light as he set it down on the nearest table. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a different insignia, one that Park recognized immediately. It was his military rank marker, captain of the human fleet, a warrior, not a diplomat. Attached it to his collar with steady hands. My government thanks the Galactic Council for its efforts, he said formally, but humanity must walk its own path now. We came here seeking peace with honor. We found neither. Turned to leave, Park fell in step beside him. Wait, Counselor called out. Captain, please, think of your people. Think of the millions who will die if this war continues. Stopped but did not turn around. I'm thinking of my people, Counselor, all of them, including the ones you want us to forget. Resumed walking. His boots echoed on the metal floor of the chamber. Every delegate watched in stunned silence as the human delegation made their way toward the exit. Ambassador called after them. You will regret this, humans. When your cities burn and your children cry out for help, remember this moment. Remember that you chose pride over survival. Reached the doorway, he paused and looked back one final time. When this is over, he said quietly, I hope you remember it too. The doors closed behind him. The human delegation was gone. For a long moment, no one in the chamber spoke. Then slowly, the delegates began to talk among themselves. Most agreed that humanity had just sealed its own doom. Some admired their courage, even if they thought it foolish. A few quietly wondered if they would have done the same thing. One thing was certain. The galaxy had just witnessed something it had never seen before. A species had chosen its people over its survival. A species had walked away from peace because peace was not enough. The war would continue. Blood would be spilled. Ships would burn in the darkness between stars. And somewhere on 3 occupied worlds, 2 million humans waited. They did not know yet what their people had just sacrificed for them. They did not know that help was coming. But humanity had made its choice. Now they would live with the consequences. The galaxy watched in shock as humanity walked away from peace. Part 3. 3 months had passed since humanity walked away from peace. 3 months of isolation, hardship, and quiet determination. Captain Sun stood on the observation deck of the carrier S Resolve. Through the thick glass, he could see the damaged ships of the human fleet. There were fewer than before. Many had fallen in battle. Others had been stripped for parts to keep the remaining vessels running. Should eat something, Commander Young said from behind him. She was the captain of the Resolve, a woman with short gray hair and a scar that ran from her ear to her jaw. She had been his friend for 20 years. I will eat when there is time, replied. There is never time, said. That is why you must make time. Handed him a food packet. It was simple rations, nothing fancy. Fancy food had disappeared weeks ago when the trade routes closed. Now humanity survived on what it could grow and produce alone. Took the packet but did not open it. Any word from our allies? Shook her head. They have officially declared neutrality. They refuse to answer our communications. Even the smaller species who supported us before have gone quiet. The council declared us peace breakers, said, no one wants to be associated with us now. Can you blame them? We rejected a treaty that the entire galaxy considered fair. Finally looked at her. Do you think it was fair, Young? Was quiet for a moment. No, but I understand why they think so. To them, population transfers are just numbers on a balance sheet. They do not see faces. They do not see families. And that is why we fight. The door to the observation deck opened, and 2 more people entered. Sergeant First Class No Bai was a ground forces commander with muscles built from years of combat. Behind her was Diplomat Min, a young woman who had spent the last 3 months trying to rebuild the alliances that had destroyed. Report said. Min spoke first. Her voice was tired. I have contacted every diplomatic channel available. The answer is the same everywhere. The galaxy considers our cause hopeless. They advise us to accept the original treaty before it is too late. It was too late the moment they asked us to abandon our people, replied. What about the internal situation? Min hesitated. There are protests on Earth. Some citizens believe we should have signed the treaty. They say the colonists are already lost and that continuing the war only creates more suffering. What do the families think, the families of the colonists? They support the war, Min admitted. They believe their loved ones are still alive, still waiting. Sergeant No stepped forward. My ground teams are ready, Captain. We have been training for 3 months straight. Whatever you need us to do, we can do it. How many soldiers do we have? 40,000 combat-ready troops, another 20,000 in reserve. Not slowly. It was not enough. It would never be enough against the Dominion's armies, but it was what they had. There is something else, Commander said. She pulled out a data tablet and handed it to. Intelligent reports from our scouts. They have split their fleet. Look at the data. His eyes widened slightly. They divided their forces. They think we are finished, explained. Half their ships are patrolling the border. The other half have returned to there for repairs and resupply. They believe there is no threat from us anymore. Arrogant, No said with satisfaction. Perhaps, agreed. Or perhaps they are simply right. We do not have the strength for a direct assault. Lean closer. We might have enough for something else. A strike, fast and hard, hit the colony worlds before they can respond. The room went quiet as everyone understood what she was suggesting. Not a battle to win the war. A rescue mission. Get in, grab the colonists, and get out before the fleet could return. The losses would be enormous, Min said softly. We might lose half our remaining fleet. Yes, agreed, we might. Stared at the data tablet. 3 worlds, 2 million people, 40,000 soldiers and 100 damaged ships. The mathematics were impossible. I need to think, he said. Give me 1 hour. The others left. Only Commander remained. You have already decided, she said. I can see it in your eyes. Am I that obvious? Only to someone who has known you for 20 years. She put a hand on his shoulder. Whatever you decide, son, I will follow you. The whole fleet will follow you. We all knew what we were choosing when we walked out of that chamber. After she left, walked through the ship alone. He passed through corridors filled with refugees, people who had escaped the colony worlds before the invasion was complete. They lived in crowded rooms now, sharing everything, waiting for news. He stopped at a small recreation area where children were playing. One girl, perhaps 7 years old, noticed him watching. She walked over with the directness that only children possess. Are you the captain? She asked. One of them replied, What is your name? Shin, the girl said. My parents are on Velar 7, the mining world. Do you know when they are coming back? Knelt down to look her in the eyes. She had the same face as thousands of other children on the ship, full of hope that she did not fully understand. What do you remember about your parents? He asked. My mother makes the best soup. My father tells funny jokes, but sometimes they are not actually funny. She smiled at the memory. They told me to be brave until they could come get me, but I have been waiting a long time. Felt something tighten in his chest. Listen to me. I am going to bring your parents home, I promise you. Really? Her eyes went wide. When? Soon said, very soon. He stood up and walked away before she could see the weight of that promise in his eyes. Soon meant everything. soon meant risking every ship, every soldier, every chance humanity had left. But he had looked into a child's eyes and made a promise, and Sun did not break his promises. He returned to the command center where the others were waiting. They stood at attention when he entered. "I've made my decision," announced. "We launch a full assault on all 3 colony worlds simultaneously, every ship we have, every soldier we can spare. We hit them before they know we are coming, and we do not stop until every single colonist is on a transport heading home." Zormin said carefully, "The odds of success." "I know the odds," interrupted. "I also know that somewhere on those worlds, parents are waiting for children. Children are waiting for parents. They have held on for 18 months because they believe we will come for them, and we will." He looked at each of them in turn. "Commander, prepare the fleet for departure. Sergeant No, brief your ground teams. Diplomats, send one final message to the Galactic Council. Tell them what we are about to do. Let them watch." "Why tell them?" No asked. Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Because when this is over, win or lose, I want them to remember. I want every species in this galaxy to know what humanity will do for its own." Turned to face the stars beyond the viewport. "We bring our people home," he said, "all of them." Preparation began immediately. Ships powered up engines that had been cold for weeks. Soldiers checked weapons and said quiet goodbyes to friends. Pilots plied courses through enemy territory. And on 3 distant worlds, 2 million humans continued to wait. They did not know that salvation was coming. But it was. The galaxy watched in shock as humanity walked away from peace. Part 4. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace in 3 different locations at exactly the same moment. It was the largest coordinated attack in human history, and it caught the Dominion completely by surprise. Commander Young stood on the bridge of the S-Resolve. Alarm began screaming across communication channels. Through the viewport, she could see the orbital defenses of HFY scrambling to respond. "All ships, this is Resolve Actual," she announced over the fleet channel. "Engage enemy vessels, keep them busy. The ground teams need time." The human warships surged forward. They were outnumbered, but they had one advantage they did not expect. They were not trying to win. They only needed to buy time. On the planet's surface, Captain Sun led the first wave of through the atmosphere. Anti-aircraft fire lit up the sky around them. 2 ships exploded to his left. 3 more went down to his right, but enough got through. "Landing zone in 30 seconds, the pilot announced. Checked his rifle one final time. The city below had once been a human colony called New. Now it was an administrative center, and somewhere in its factories and warehouses, thousands of human workers were held. "Remember the mission," said to the soldiers packed into the, "find our people, get them to the evacuation points. Do not stop for anything else." The ship hit the ground hard. The doors burst open and was running before his feet fully touched the dirt. Soldiers were already responding. Energy weapons flashed through the air, ducked behind a broken wall as shots burned past his head. He returned fire, dropping 2 enemy soldiers before moving again. "Spread out," he shouted. "Team 1, take the factory district. Team 2, the residential blocks, move." Across the stars, similar scenes were playing out on 2 other worlds. Velar 7, the mining planet, Sergeant No led her team through underground tunnels. The air was thick with dust and the smell of chemicals. Somewhere ahead, she could hear machinery grinding. "Contact ahead," her point man whispered. No held up a fist, and her team stopped. She peered around the corner and saw a guard post. 4 soldiers stood between her and the main mine chamber. "Grenades on my mark," she said quietly. 3, 2, 1 mark. Explosions echoed through the tunnels. Before the dust settled, No was moving. Her rifle cracked twice and the remaining guards fell. Pushed through the doors into the mine chamber and stopped. Hundreds of humans looked up at her. They were thin and pale, covered in dust and wearing torn clothing. Some of them still held mining tools in their hands. They stared at the human soldiers like they were seeing ghosts. "Who are you?" an old man asked. No pulled off her helmet so they could see her face. "I'm Sergeant No of the human fleet. We have come to take you home." For a moment no one moved. Then a woman began to cry. Others joined her. Some fell to their knees. An old man grabbed No's hands and would not let go. "We knew you would come," he said through his tears. "We never stopped believing." "Save the tears for later," No said gently. "Right now, I need everyone who can walk to follow me. We have evacuation ships waiting, but we do not have much time." He turned to Private Moon 1, the youngest soldier in her team. He was standing frozen, staring at the workers. His face was pale. Moon No snapped, "Focus." The young soldier blinked. "Sergeant, that woman there, she could be my grandmother. She could be anyone's grandmother, and they made her work in a mine." "I know," No said. "Use that anger later. Right now, help me save them." Moon straightened his shoulders and moved to assist the elderly workers who could not walk on their own. In orbit above HFY, the battle was going badly for humanity. Commander watched as another cruiser broke apart under enemy fire. The defense fleet was larger than intelligence had predicted. Her ships were taking heavy losses. "Resolve, this is Transport Group Alpha," a voice crackled over the radio. "We are beginning descent. Ground teams report first wave of colonists ready for pickup." "Understood," Alpha replied. "We will keep them off you." He turned to her weapons officer. "All batteries, focus fire on that battlecruiser. If it reaches the transports, we lose everything." Resolve shuddered as it took a direct hit. Warning lights flashed across every console. "I'll breach on Deck 7, someone reported. "Sealing now." Metal teams to Deck 7 ordered. "Keep firing, do not stop." On the surface of HFY, Captain had reached the main detention facility. Soldiers fought hard to stop him, but his troops pushed through corridor by corridor. They found the colonists in large holding cells, hundreds of people crammed in spaces meant for dozens. When the doors opened, the reaction was the same as on HFY 7. Shock, disbelief, and then overwhelming emotion. "This way," directed. "Transport ships are landing in the central plaza. Follow my soldiers. Do not stop for anything." An old woman grabbed his arm. Captain, my daughter's in the Western Facility. Please, you have to find her. We will, promised. Team 4, Western Facility, find everyone. Evacuation was chaos, but it was working. Streams of human colonists flowed toward the landing zones. Transports lifted off as soon as they were full, climbing through the battle above to reach safety. But time was running out. Captain's voice came through his communicator. Reinforcements have entered the system. We have maybe 20 minutes before they reach combat range. How many colonists are still on the surface? Best estimate, 200,000 across all 3 worlds. Looked at the sky. Somewhere up there, his people were dying to give him these precious minutes. He would not waste them. All teams increase pace. We leave no one behind. Last transports were loading when reinforcements began arriving. Fresh enemy ships poured into the battle, and the human fleet began to crumble. Resolve is taking critical damage, reported. Her voice was calm but could hear explosions in the background. Engine room is gone. We are losing power. Can you still fight? For a little while longer. The last transports are clearing the atmosphere now. They will make it. What about your crew? There was a pause. I have ordered them to the escape pods, but someone needs to keep the weapons firing. Someone needs to give the transports time to reach hyperspace. Understood what she was saying, young. Do not argue with me, son. I have known you for 20 years. You know this is the right choice. With the communicator, he could hear the resolve dying around her. Fires, explosions, the screaming of metal. My family, I was thinking of them, said. And son, you were right to walk away from that treaty. Make sure the galaxy remembers why. The communication cut off. In the sky above, the S-Resolve made its final charge toward the reinforcement fleet. Its weapons fired until they melted. Its engines burned until they exploded. And when it finally broke apart, it took 3 enemy cruisers with it. The last human transport entered hyperspace and vanished. Captain stood in the loading bay of his own transport ship, surrounded by colonists who had spent 18 months as slaves. They were free now, all of them, 2 million people returning home. But the cost had been enormous. 60% of the human fleet was gone. Thousands of soldiers would never return, and Commander Young, his friend of 20 years, had given her life so that others might live. A young woman approached him. She was thin and tired, but her eyes were bright. You came for us, she said. We thought we were forgotten. We thought no one cared, but you came. Could not find words, he simply nodded. The woman took his hand. Thank you for not giving up on us. As the transport ship carried them toward Earth, stood alone at a viewport and watched the stars. Somewhere behind them, the galaxy was watching. Somewhere behind them, other species were asking questions they had never asked before. The humans had come. Against all odds, against all reason, against everything the galaxy believed about survival and sacrifice. They had come for their people, and they had brought them home. The galaxy watched in shock as humanity walked away from peace. Port 5. Transport ships arrived at Earth one by one over the course of 3 days. Each landing was broadcast across the planet. Each reunion was witnessed by billions. Son stood at the edge of the main landing field and watched as families found each other. Mothers ran to children they had not seen in 18 months. Husbands collapsed into the arms of wives they thought they would never hold again. The sounds of crying and laughter mixed together until they became something like music. Sergeant No-Buy stood beside him, her uniform still dusty from the mining tunnels of Velar 7. Nearby, Private Moon, one helped elderly colonists down the transport ramps, his face wet with tears he did not bother to hide. We did it, No said quietly. We actually did it. Yes, replied, we did. But his voice carried no joy. His eyes kept moving to the empty spaces in the sky where ships should have been. 60% of the human fleet, thousands of lives, Commander Young. He would have been proud, No said, guessing his thoughts. He would have told me to stop feeling sorry for myself and get back to work, said. A small smile crossed his face. She was always practical that way. Commotion near one of the transport ships caught his attention. A small girl was running across the landing field, dying around adults twice her size. Recognized her immediately. Shin, the child who had asked him about her parents. She was running toward a man and woman who had just stepped off the transport. They were thin and tired, their clothes still stained with mine dust, but they were alive. They were free. The one screamed. The girl threw herself into her mother's arms. Her father wrapped them both in an embrace that looked like it would never end. Watched the reunion from a distance. This was why they had fought. This moment, repeated thousands of times across the landing field. This was the answer to every question the galaxy had asked. A week later, Council arrived on Earth. He came alone, without guards or ceremony, on a small diplomatic ship. It was the first time in galactic history that a member of the High Council had visited a world that had been declared peacebreakers. Met her at the landing pad. He did not bow, he did not smile, he simply waited. Captain said. Her silver face showed something he had never seen in her before, uncertainty. I requested this meeting because I have questions that the entire galaxy is asking. Then asked them, said. Why? The word seemed to cost her something. Why did you sacrifice so much for people who were already lost? Your fleet is shattered. Your economy is ruined. You will need decades to recover, all for workers who could have been replaced. Stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned and began walking. Come with me, he said. I will show you why. He led her through the streets of the city to a refugee center that had been set up in a converted stadium. Inside, thousands of colonists were receiving medical care, food, and clean clothing. Families sat together on simple cots, holding each other as if afraid to let go. Look at them, said. Tell me what you see. They did the scene with her ancient eyes. I see survivors of conflict, displaced persons requiring resources. Look again. It was quiet for a long time. She watched a father teaching his son to tie his shoes. She watched an old woman singing softly to a baby. She watched 2 brothers who had not seen each other in 18 months sharing a meal and laughing at old jokes. I see families, she said finally. I see connections. Yes, said. That is what humans are. Not individuals, not resources. We are the connection between us. When you take one person, you do not just take one life. You break 1,000 threads that connect them to others. You create wounds that never fully heal. He turned to face her directly. The galaxy asked us to sign a treaty that would have cut 2 million people away from everyone who loved them. You called them population assets. We call them mothers, fathers, children, friends. And we will never, ever accept a peace that requires us to abandon them. Silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different than had ever heard it. My people, when an individual becomes too old or too sick to contribute, they are quietly removed from society. It is considered merciful, practical. She paused. I had a sister once. She was born with defects that made her useless for work. My parents gave her to the removal centers when she was 3 years old. I never questioned it until this moment. Said nothing. He understood that she was not looking for comfort. Our species confuses us, continued. You are weak compared to men races. Your technology is primitive. You are short. And yet you do things that no other species would do. You sacrifice the many for the few. You value the broken and the lost. It makes no logical sense. Perhaps logic is not everything, Sid. Looked at him with something that might have been the beginning of understanding. Perhaps not. Days later, the Dominion sent a new treaty offer. This time, there were no hidden clauses, no population assets, no buried provisions, just straightforward terms for peace. Captain presented the treaty to the colonists themselves. 10,000 of them gathered in a great assembly hall, representatives of the 2 million who had been rescued. You have the right to decide, told them. You are the ones who suffered most. You are the ones who waited in those mines and factories. If you want peace, we will sign this treaty. If you want justice, we will continue to fight. A woman stood up in the crowd, recognized her as one of the workers from Velar 7, the one who had grabbed his arm and asked about her daughter. Spent 18 months in darkness, she said. Her voice was strong despite everything she had endured. I watched friends die. I worked until my hands bled, and every day I held on to one hope that my people had not forgotten me. He looked around at the assembled colonists. You did not forget us. You came for us when the entire galaxy said it was impossible, and now you ask us what we want. He straightened her shoulders. We want the Dominion to know that they can never do this again, to us or to anyone else. We do not want revenge. We want change. We want a galaxy that understands what humans understand, that every single life matters. A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. Then a vote was taken. The colonists chose to sign the treaty, but only after adding one condition. The Dominion must officially outlaw population transfers in all future conflicts. The Dominion, still reeling from the embarrassment of losing all their human workers in a single day, agreed. The treaty was signed on Orbital Prime, in the same chamber where humanity had walked away from peace 4 months earlier. Captain stood at the same platform where he had refused the first treaty, but this time he signed. Counselor presided over the ceremony. As set down the signing implement, she addressed the assembled delegates. Let the records show that this treaty was achieved not through compromise, but through conviction. Humanity taught us something today. They taught us that there are principles worth more than convenience. They taught us that the value of a civilization is measured not by its power, but by its commitment to its own people. She turned to look at. The galaxy watched in shock as humanity walked away from peace. Now we understand why. They did not walk away from peace. They walked toward something greater, the promise that no human would ever be left behind. That evening, a memorial service was held for those who had died in the rescue. The names were read aloud, one by one. It took hours. When they reached Commander Young, Captain stepped forward to speak. It told me at the end to make sure the galaxy remembered why we fought, he said. His voice was steady, but those who knew him could see the grief beneath. Young believed that some things are worth dying for. She believed that the measure of a people is not what they will accept, but what they will refuse to accept. He looked up at the stars. We refuse to accept a galaxy that trades in human lives. We refuse to accept peace built on the backs of slaves. And because of that refusal, 2 million of our people are home tonight with their families. He paused. The galaxy watched us walk away from peace. Let them also watch what we walk toward each other, always toward each other. The service ended. The stars continued to shine, and somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other species were beginning to ask new questions about old practices. Humanity had changed them all. Not with weapons, not with threats, but with love.